Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We have good, bad, but also pretty crazy and crazy martinis for you today. And Jim, let's start with the good, which is also a follow-up on Monday's Good Martini. It came at the end of Monday's podcast when we were talking about the latest assassination attempt against Donald Trump. And the good news was that Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, was announcing that Florida officials would do their own investigation of this while the feds do theirs as well. Some thought that was, unnecessary or in some way partisan. But yesterday he was asked about this, and I think his explanation of this makes a lot of sense. There's actually two prongs of it. Here's the main part, and I think the strongest argument for it.
The federal government does not have jurisdiction to bring an attempted murder charge. They don't have jurisdiction over a case that's not a federal official or is a apparent winner of a presidential election or the formally declared president-elect. So right then and there, we have the ability to pursue potentially life in prison under state law. That's a huge reason why we should move forward at the state level.
Yeah, I think he's exactly right about that. He also says that because the Justice Department, due to potential political conflict, appointed a special counsel on the Trump case in Florida, the classified documents case, and he thinks that's another reason why the state should play a major role in this investigation. I think the argument that you can actually prosecute this guy for more than a couple of gun crimes as a result of what he did is a much stronger argument than what I've heard anywhere else so far. Yeah, look, the charges against the would-be assassin, one is for illegal possession of a firearm by a prohibited person. By the way, I haven't seen anything about how he got the gun and if because of his past felony convictions, he should not have been able to buy one. Now, we don't know whether he stole it, somebody gave it to him. There's a possible other explanation here. But nonetheless, okay, that's bad. The average sentence for somebody who's convicted of this is 5 years and 8 months, which is obviously not nothing, but that seems relatively small for someone whose real problem, the real crime, was attempting to kill the former president. The second charge is possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number. Maximum prison sentence for that is 5 years in prison. In all likelihood, $250,000 fine, 3 years supervised release. Again, not nothing, but if you added those two together, you're looking at 8 years in prison. And I just feel like you should get more if you're trying to kill the former president and trying to assassinate a guy 2 months before Election Day. That seems very light. Now, it's possible the feds could come up with other, indictments here. But really, the problem was not that the serial number was filed off. The problem partially was that he had a gun, and he legally is not allowed to own one. But really, the biggest problem is he was trying to kill the former president. That seems like something that should crop up somewhere in these legal issues. And so I think DeSantis is completely in the rights here. It would seem kind of almost absurd if nothing more serious than illegal gun possession and scrubbing off the serial number would be the two most serious charges this guy would face. So go for it, state of Florida. Let's see what they investigate. Let's see what kind of charges they feel that they have a good chance of making stick. And hopefully this guy goes to prison for the rest of his life. Yeah, no doubt about it. And the fact that the feds can't charge for attempted murder was something I didn't know. I had never really thought about that before. I think the federal prosecutor said they came up with these two real quick as a way of holding him, and maybe they will be tacking on federal charges beyond that, though. But, completely different case, obviously. But, Jim, you lived in this area when the Beltway sniper was around. And remember, there were shootings in a bunch of different jurisdictions. And so they decided to where we're going to prosecute, we're going to prosecute here because the chances for a conviction are better. And we have a stiffer penalty potentially in Virginia than Maryland at that time and so forth. And so there's jurisdiction calculation is certainly nothing new. No, it's not. And I guess, look, if somebody wants to accuse DeSantis of playing politics, I don't, there's good reason for the public to be very outraged over this. As we discussed, this isn't the first attempt. This is the second attempt in about 2 months. And I think a lot of people are unnerved by the idea that somebody could get close enough to conceivably have a shot. Apparently, he never had Trump directly in his sights, but that may have just been how far the former president's golf game had gotten.
We should be outraged by this. And so the last thing I think anybody wants to see is, well, we could charge him on more serious charges, but we're afraid we'd lose. So we're not going to try. That would be hard.
That's weak. And then the argument, Trump wasn't close enough to give him a chance to take the shot is not exactly.
Does he get bonus points for that? Is it, it's kind of like if the Butler shooter had survived and he'd been arrested. Well, he only nicked the president's ear. So, does he get a bonus for not being a good shot? Is that something we want to give him credit here? So
more on golf later, by the way. So stay tuned for that. And it also relates to the latest Trump assassination attempt. But in the meantime, if you want to take an adult drink after a second assassination attempt, I couldn't blame you. But take Z-Biotics first and you'll feel much better. It's very simple. Take Z-Biotics before you have any drinks. Don't drink too much, and you will feel better the next morning than you otherwise would have.
Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for your rough next morning. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, as always, and you will feel your best the following morning.
As I've mentioned many times, my colleague knew his limits, but as he got older, didn't feel so great the next morning. Tried Z-Biotics. Everything's right where it should be. Go to zbiotics.com/3ml to get 15% off your first order when you use 3ml at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantees, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Visit zbiotics.com/3ml and use the code 3ml at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. All right, Jim, on to our bad/crazy martini now. And one of the drum beats we've had on this podcast and many others have had as well since Kamala Harris became the presumptive nominee close to 2 months ago now. So we're more than halfway between the day she kind of got that nod and election day. Hey, you got to do some press conferences. Well, haven't really done that. You got to do more interviews. Finally did one at the end of August with Dana Bash. And she did a local one in Philadelphia last week, which did not go well. A lot of word salad happening there. Also, shortly after becoming the presumptive nominee, she skipped the convention of the National Association of Black Journalists. But yesterday, again in Philadelphia, she at least sat down with 3 members of that organization, took some questions, and some of them were more probing, and then other ones make you wonder, are we really going to get any serious answers from some of these interviews? Here is the one that was probably the most nauseating question, and I don't think anything similar to this came up in the Trump interview at the NABJ convention.
And your opponent and Republicans have at times weaponized you laughing in campaign ads, for example. Why is joy important to you to insert into this election? And what do you make of Republicans using that as a way to suggest that you're not a serious candidate?
Oh my gosh. This is probably a little bit beyond the Barbara Walters tree question, but honestly, this is basically a rephrased and reworded question of why are you awesome? So not exactly a sterling moment for that reporter.
There was a White House press conference during the Obama years where the first question of the press conference was something along the lines of, President Obama, I believe it was the Todd Aiken comments. And it was like, isn't this a sign Republicans have a problem with women? Like that's the DNC ad right there. So it's like, we're writing an article on how Republicans have a problem with women. Could you please give me a quote that I can put near the top of the story so that, can you help advance this narrative that I am promoting here? Look, if you have a chance to ask a question of a presidential candidate, you can do one of two things. You could do what this guy did and just basically say, your campaign has a message about being pro-joy, about being underestimated, probably an insinuation that criticism of you is racist and sexist, and that you are the happy candidate, the cheery candidate, the optimistic candidate, while Trump is the dark, dour, angry, bad, negative candidate. Could you elaborate on this campaign message of yours? And could you say the same campaign message that we're seeing in all of your ads in this, what is probably my lone opportunity to ask a question of a presidential candidate? That's one option. Or you could ask her almost anything on any public policy issue. You could ask anything on what will you be doing that Biden did not? Have you had any major disagreements with President Biden over the last 3.5 years? And if so, what were they? And how did that shake out? We talked about firearms in the last segment. Harris said she's a gun owner. I saw the reference to the article back when she was running in 2019 said it was a handgun. They didn't say any specifiable model. I would love to know, entirely separate from who's going to win the presidential election. Madam Vice President, when did you buy the gun? What prompted you to buy the gun? Do you get out to the range or do you practice shooting? How does the Secret Service feel about that? How do you feel about having a gun? I assume it's for your own personal protection. There are really interesting questions you could ask the vice president about that. And do you see any contradiction between you owning a gun or having the Secret Service protecting you and your efforts to restrict gun ownership and other areas? These are all great and this person didn't do it. And I think whenever a reporter asks a question that glaring, like the entirety of that question was simply the softest of softballs. That was a marshmallow. It wasn't even thrown over the plate. It was rolled across the plate. And I guess you're supposed to chop at it with a golf club or something like that. I'm foreshadowing the next martini. It's just frustrating because Harris does so few interviews, takes so few questions, hasn't held a formal press conference so far, hasn't done a sit down. Well, she did one sit down televised interview with Walls on CNN. She did the other one with the local Philly station that didn't go great. And I noticed they did it perfectly timed to come out on a Friday night, the deadest part of the news cycle. And, conveniently for them, the attempted assassination of Trump happened on Sunday, so that by Monday it felt like old news. The Harris campaign has decided we're going to answer as few questions as possible between now and Election Day. The question is, why are allegedly respectable members of the working press trying to help them with that?
Yeah, you mentioned the question for Obama after the whole Todd Aiken flap erupted. That would be 2012. I remember Jeff Zeleny, I can't remember if he was at the Times or CNN, at Obama's first 100 days, so that'd be 2009. And he gave a whole litany of questions about what have you found the most this, the least this, and then one of them was, what have you found the most enchanting?
Yes, that was the other one I was trying to think of.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't think Republicans get that question, nor would I want one if I was the Republican president. But that's just grandstanding, and again, the softest of softballs.
There's a variation of that question. Mr. President, you've been president for 6 months. What surprised you the most? That's a fair. Right. That'd be a
sure.
There are all kinds of versions of that, but it's almost like you're trying, like a lawyer trying to lead the witness. And there's also this. The vibe of the question strongly insinuates, we're rooting for you, Mr. President. You're awesome. You're the best. That I think no Republican, Democrat, your job as a journalist is to get information that doesn't already exist. Why do people not like your laugh? What do you think she's going to say? Well, yes. My laugh is very annoying. And as a result of that, people don't want to vote for me.
Exactly. Yeah, compare that with David Gregory back in the Bush days of, when are you going to start admitting things you were wrong about? And all sorts of other things. So especially the closer you get to elections, the dichotomy in the type of questions, it's a subtle difference, but maybe you can pick up on it. AI, artificial intelligence, might be the most important new computer technology ever, and it has the potential to transform every industry and alter so many different aspects of the way we live. But the problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So at your business, how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? Well, the first step is to take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/martini.
It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. OCI offers a complete range of cloud services to meet your needs, whether it's on-premises, hybrid, multi-cloud, or public. Its global network and flexible options tackle your toughest business challenges. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. It's got 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, all at one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing.
So better quality, less price. You can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. Do more and spend less, like Uber did, plus 8x8, Databricks Mosaic, and others. Take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/martini. That's oracle.com/martini. oracle.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And we've seen how many in the media and on the left have responded to the second assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Some of them managed to get out the perfunctory tweet of, we don't appreciate political violence. We settle this at the ballot box, and on and on and on. Most of them, in the mainstream media anyway, went straight to, well, Trump's rhetoric. I mean, look what he's saying about Springfield, Ohio. So it's not a huge surprise that this would happen. But now here's another twist. This is Politico. Erica Orden, Jonathan Lemire, Betsy Woodruff Swan, former NR reporter. The apparent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump at his South Florida golf course on Sunday ignited long-standing concerns among security experts that Trump's regular golf habit might make him vulnerable to assailants. Those concerns were borne out Sunday at the Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, where authorities said a Secret Service agent spotted a gunman with a rifle sticking through the fence and fired at the man before he fled the scene. Trump was playing golf 300 to 500 yards away and was not harmed, but the former president's favorite pastime presents a serious challenge for the people protecting him. Quote, outdoor events of that size and duration, 3 to 5 hours, are incredibly difficult and stressful, said Paul Eckloff, a former Secret Service agent who was assistant detail leader for Trump during his presidency. You can't surround a person who's golfing with steel or glass. And though golf is practically a mainstay of the modern American presidency, Trump's particular fondness for the sport makes his appearance on the links more predictable and thus riskier. Quote, the problem is over the last 8 years, specifically with Trump, is that he golfs a lot. He golfs all the time, so it doesn't take a neurosurgeon to figure out that if he's down at Mar-a-Lago and it's nice weather, he's probably going to a golf course, said Mike Olson, a 21-year veteran of the Secret Service, who retired as a senior special agent and served with Vice President Cheney. So, Jim, as the article stated, he's not the first president to enjoy golf. Bush 41 especially, Bush 43 a little bit. Clinton was addicted to golf and fudging his score, as a lot of people suspected. Jerry Ford golfed a lot. Eisenhower, I think, spent more time on the golf course than in the Oval Office. And Obama became a golf addict while he was in office, although he played at Andrews Air Force Base, where I assume some of the security protocols are more built in than they might be at where Trump was. But, I mean, the point of the Secret Service is that the person they're protecting should be able to do normal things with proper security protocols in place. So this idea that they're badly underfunded or that it's just too dangerous for the protectee to play golf doesn't strike me as a legitimate concern.
As I was reading that, Greg, one of the things I think that's become clear in having 2 assassination attempts on the president in a 2-month span. Yes, Gerald Ford had 2 in a very short span as well. And there's always been nut jobs who want to kill the president, going back to Abe Lincoln. It's part of the modern world. You have somebody who's angry at the world, some Travis Bickle type, who decides, I want to make a name for myself. I want to be famous. My dog is talking to me like Son of Sam. I've decided killing the president is going to save the world or something like that. The frequency, and I wouldn't want to say ubiquitousness, but the fact that we know there are so many nut jobs out there, it is changed, it is elevated, it is now almost a very conscious subculture in American life. And by the way, it's very likely that there are nut jobs out there who want to assassinate President Biden. We remember Cesar Sayoc, the nut job who was sending the pipe bombs before the 2018 elections. I'm sure the Republicans want to say, thanks a lot, pal. It was really helpful to have you sending those to Democratic lawmakers and liberal talking heads and folks like that. It feels like the culture of it has changed, that it's no longer a lone nut. It is now part of this probably internet-connected subculture of this political figure is the root of all evil. And if I assassinate this person, I will save the world. I will make the world a better place. And it's coming much more frequently. Now, everything laid out in the article, like there's a logic to it. Yeah, Trump hangs around a lot at Mar-a-Lago. That means if you want to take a shot at him, you kind of have a sense of where he's likely going to be. It's a nice day. Yeah, he's probably going to be playing golf. Way back in 2005, 2007, I lived in Turkey. Before I got over there, they gave us a security briefing. And the security briefing is, don't take the same route to work every day. Don't always hang around the same places. If you make your pattern of behavior too critical, it makes it more likely for the bad guys to be able to figure out when and where you're going to be and make you a target. I should not make it sound like I was a particularly high-value target or anything like that, but I was an American in the Middle East at a time when the Iraq War was going on, and there were Islamists and PKK and lots of other terrorists out there. That's why there was a lot of embassy security and all that kind of stuff. If people know when and where Trump is going to be, well, then it makes it a little bit easier for the bad guys. I don't think it's reasonable to say to Donald Trump, you can't golf at Mar-a-Lago anymore, or you're taking a certain risk upon yourself. Might be a good idea to vary your routine. Might be a good idea to go, you know what, you can afford it. Why don't you go visit some other golf course today? Why don't you break it up a little bit, just so that it's not easy for somebody to figure out when and where you're going to be on a particular one. I don't think that's necessarily telling the president what he's got to do, but I think it's just logic. It's just a matter of how do you maximize the protective odds for Donald Trump, and how do you minimize the odds of some nut job being able to be in the right place at the right time to do harm to the former president. But yeah, there is a little bit disturbing about this idea of, well, the world's just gotten too dangerous, so Trump can't do outdoor events anymore. You can't go golfing anymore, or something like that. That is, like, post 9/11, we had this whole mentality of, if you stop doing X because of the fear of terrorism, then the terrorists win. Right? So, Taylor Swift should keep singing, even if there are people who are trying to blow up people at her concerts and stuff. Don't stop. In a very strange way, President Trump, don't stop golfing. Presidents, don't change don't change what you have to do in a concession that the world has become too dangerous. Secret Service, we really need you to do a lot better. And also, if you think someone is thinking of assassinating the president, call the cops. The U.S. Secret Service would love to hear from you, I'm sure.
And it didn't work on 24 very often, but set up a perimeter around the actual outside of the golf course, and that'll make it a lot harder for people to infiltrate. I know it's a lot of territory, a lot of space, a lot of grounds to take care of, but by now, 8 years after he started running for president and certainly became the nominee and getting Secret Service protection, you should have a plan, an effective plan for dealing with his golf habit. I think that's
this doesn't.
By now, there should be a plan in place.
George H.W. Bush used to skydive regularly. Like, this can't be the most risky behavior any former president is engaging in.
All right. Well, something tells me he's not going to give up golfing. So hopefully they have a slightly modified plan the next time he's out there. Jim, have a great day. We'll do it again tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Do subscribe to the podcast if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch Podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific Wednesday and join us again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.